Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Now, sub-Saharan Africa has the youngest population in the world, and it's growing rapidly. By 2030, the United Nations estimates the region will be home to a quarter of the world's 15 to 24-year-olds. How will African countries cope with this sizable new generation of young people and in terms of work and study? Now, universities on the continent are already overwhelmed, and experts are saying the curriculum needs to be changed to better meet the needs of the workforce. For VOA in Dakar, Sophia Christensen has the latest of 3 reports of higher education in Senegal.
Every week, Mormati Ndoye buys cheap clothes from Dakar's Sandaga market. He sells them for a small profit.
After graduating with my degree in physics and chemistry, I needed a job to make a living, but I realized that university hadn't given me the qualifications I needed.
After a year of rejections, Mormati started a part-time course in geomatics and urban planning, what he hopes will be marketable skills in a city overrun with construction projects.
This training will open many doors for me. I can go into remote sensing, cartography. I now know how to make and interpret a map and how to manipulate spatial data.
Like most countries in sub-Saharan Africa, Senegal is struggling to employ its youth, especially when they are educated. According to 2017 government data, the unemployment rate in Senegal is actually highest among people with more than a secondary school education.
In Africa, there is this incompatibility between the content of university programs and the needs of the economy. Young people going into higher education expect a higher quality of life and easier access to jobs, but in many countries, they are actually more likely to be unemployed.
Just over half of Senegal's working population is employed in agriculture. The service sector comes second, followed by occupations such as construction and mining. But at Senegal's main public university, more than a third of students are studying humanities. The government sees the need to diversify. Senegal plans to open technical training schools in each of its 14 regions. The state is also building a new agricultural institute and a science and technology university devoted to fields such as electromechanics, aeronautics, land management, and agribusiness. But young people say they need guidance.
Looking back, I would have preferred to do something different, like being a builder, for example. I can't even see the point of having studied, and I can tell you, I'm not the only one.
Moussa Diatta got a government grant to get his degree in finance and banking at a private institute in Dakar. But he has found little demand for his skills. Instead, he manages a second-hand furniture warehouse. He fears time is running out. Each year, 200,000 more youth hit the job market in Senegal. Sophia Christensen for VOA News, Dakar.
Since gaining independence in 2011, South Sudan has been faced with numerous challenges. Prolonged conflict has left several ripple effects, including hunger, population migration, and public health issues, among others. According to the United Nations, about 1,400 people are currently identified as living with HIV. The organization is advocating for more investments in HIV response.
Prolonged fighting in South Sudan has put thousands of civilians at risk of poverty, displacement, and various forms of abuse. The violence has contributed to the spread of several diseases in the country. Experts are concerned that the ongoing conflict in the world's youngest country is causing high HIV prevalence in rural areas, especially as many of the displaced people lack access to proper medical facilities. Currently, about 1,400 people are identified as living with the HIV virus, and about 900 of them are on antiretroviral treatment. The chief of the Joint United Nations Program on HIV/AIDS, Michel Sidibe, arrives in the town that has experienced a fair share of insecurity. He is given a warm welcome by women who identify themselves as people living with HIV. His mission? To advocate for more investment in HIV response through protection, upholding of human rights, and addressing gender-based violence.
We needed to pay attention to the interlinkages between HIV and violence against women during the crisis period, and particularly how to rehabilitate those adolescent girls, how to make sure that we end this violence and we reach people who have been left behind with the services, and there are many.
The UN official also calls for domestic funding and commitment from the government to fast-track the HIV response and persuade parties to the conflict to put the plight of the people first. Pina Musa was infected by HIV in 2006. She went through counseling and now has access to medication. She's helping others in her community to understand the condition.
Thanks to the quality of healthcare here, I was able to have all my children without passing on the sickness to any of them. I'm really happy, and now all I want to do is let people know that they can have their children without passing on the sickness to them.
UNAIDS is leading the global effort to end AIDS as a public health threat by 2030 as part of the Sustainable Development Goals. Since it began operations in 1996, it's led and inspired global, regional, national, and local leadership to combat the scourge of HIV.
Well, for Muslims, the month of Ramadan is the time for self-reflection and prayer, and fasting from sunrise to sunset. After sunset, families and friends enjoy a meal called Iftar at a mosque in Virginia outside Washington. People of various faiths came to Iftar one evening and to join Muslims in prayer. VOA's Deborah Block has the story.
Here at the Dar al-Hijra Islamic Center in Falls Church, Virginia, Seaton McElroy, who is Catholic, is joining Muslims in worship for the first time.
It was a spiritual experience, certainly, and it's impressive, and I love that I could have that experience with a different faith and still sort of, I don't know, still feel God even though I'm not in a church.
McElroy is among an interfaith group that were invited to one of the largest mosques in the Washington area for Iftar, the evening meal Muslims eat after fasting from sunrise to sunset. Imam Naeem Beg, outreach director at the Islamic Center, says he hopes the people who do not know much about Islam would learn more about it.
I see it as my responsibility to share our faith, to share our values. Just by sitting together and eating itself brings people closer.
Jim Winkler, head of a Christian organization, the National Council of Churches, told the group he looks forward to the day when all faiths are accepted and respected.
This is what we're really supposed to be about as believers, being together, breaking bread, talking and laughing together.
Rabbi Jerry Serrata heads a nonprofit organization of 11 different faiths, which include Islam and the Buddhist and Mormon religions.
If more people understood how much we had in common with other faiths, I think that would go a long way to reducing some of the bigotry that's out there.
Robert Watkin, a pastor at Falls Church, Virginia Anglican Church, teaches a class on building bridges with Muslims. And he brought his students so they could learn more about Islam firsthand.
The first step towards tearing down walls is really beginning to build relationships and getting to know others.
As Sophia Asidram joins other women in prayer at the mosque, she knows how important that is. Since her mother is Catholic and her father is Muslim, she decided to embrace Islam.
So it's definitely challenging coming from a family that is, divided in terms of religion. But I think that for me, the most important thing about it is, and the number one thing that I've taken away from it is kind of the importance of dialogue between the two sides.
More than anything, Imam Beg says, he hopes the interfaith visitors will take with them the beauty of Islam.
The aspect of generosity, the aspect of kindness, the aspect of taking care of your neighbor, the aspect of thinking about those who are not as blessed as we are. And I think this iftar touches upon the humanness of our faith.
Deborah Block, VOA News, Falls Church, Virginia.
Well, and that's our show for today. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Chamberlain also has our last word from Lagos.
We look forward to bringing you another show next week. ChannelsTV.com is your source for news, sports, and other programming. I'm Chamberlain Uso. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.